Justice T.S. Thakur, the Honorable Chief Justice of India, my brother and sister judges, past and present, Justice Ahmadi, former Chief Justice of India, Mr. Mukul Rohatgi, the Attorney General for India, members of the staff of Mr. Mukul Rohatgi, all the law officers, the Advocate General for Karnataka, who's possibly come all the way for you, Honorable Senior Advocates, Mr. Fali Nariman, Mr. P.P. Rao, Mr. K.T.S. Tulsi, Mr. Ariman Sundaram, Mr. P.P. Malhotra, Mr. P.P. Rao, Mr. Dushyant Dave, Ms. Indra Jaisingh, and so many other senior lawyers I cannot name. Mr. Gopal Singh, President of the Advocates on Record Bar Association, Mrs. Amita Thakur, the three children, the sisters, and the brother, members of the bar, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I first set my eyes on Justice Thakur when he came as Chief Justice to Chandigarh in November 2008. I remember vividly his being dressed in a khadi starched half-sleeved shirt, very casually dressed but very elegantly dressed. My first glimpse of him gave me the impression of a very handsome man, an extremely handsome man. And if he was handsome to a man, I was wondering what he would be to a woman. Well, we met, we shook hands. It was a firm and warm handshake. And that's how the relationship continued. But to find out how a woman would feel about him didn't take me too long. For he was described from here only as our flamboyant, handsome Chief Justice of India. During my interactions with him in Chandigarh, I came to understand that he came from an extremely extraordinary background. The son of Mr. D.D. Thakur, a prolific lawyer, who was elevated as a judge of the Jammu and Kashmir High Court. And just now I was asking him how much time he had worked with his father, and he says 6 months, because within 6 months his father was elevated. Mr. D.D. Thakur, the first judge in the family, was asked by the Chief Minister to join his cabinet. And he joined his cabinet as the Deputy Chief Minister. So one can imagine the personality of the man who is being asked to give up judgeship and join a cabinet, and that at the rank of Deputy Chief Minister. I also, during my course of discussions with him, came to understand that his father was finance minister for 10 years. And that's by itself something very special. If you are accepted as finance minister for 10 years, you are indeed an extraordinary person. Mr. D.D. Thakur was then also governor. So, coming from that family, and not just that, the family has now a sitting judge in Jammu and Kashmir. Justice Dheeraj Singh Thakur is with us. I understand one of his sisters is also practicing. So it's a very, very illustrious family. Justice Thakur married into a very affluent and highly respected family in Himachal Pradesh. And with God's grace, he has had the companionship of Mrs. Amita Thakur in his journey of life. I have had the occasion to see his elder son, Sharan. I saw him a couple of times. He appeared in my court. He has bearings of his father, and I'm told he has a reasonably good practice by now. The other two children, Natasha and Siddhartha, I met briefly when we had gone to the fleet review. It seemed to me that Natasha was the charm of her father. The moment he looked at her, well, he was different. But they were excellent children. Two youngsters I met, and one would feel that if your children were like that, you've achieved a lot in life. So it's thanks to your and Mrs. Amita Thakur's bearings that you had brought your children up in the manner that you did. But I started with class, belonging to class. And I'm reminded of a little episode which I'll narrate to you. Justice Thakur on that particular day was wearing a tweed jacket. And I said to him, my father had a similar jacket. Is it a Harris? And he says, yes, it's a Harris. But he says, can you imagine I bought a Harris in New York? I said, how is that? Because you get Harris in UK. And he said, I was at the airport and I had nothing to do and there was a great sale. Buy one, get one free, so I got two. So when class comes, it comes in bundles and hordes, and Justice Thakur has the nobility of that class. Well, he left Chandigarh, and when he left Chandigarh, as there are, as now, so then, official judges' farewells and farewells by the Bar Association, as well as attended as today. But what was unbelievable then was the manner in which the Employees Association bid him farewell. Never had I seen in my life before the Punjabi drum and bhangra, and it was a matter of extreme affection shown to a person who is going from a place to a higher place. I have not seen that ever except once, when I saw a photograph of Justice Thakur and Justice Dave in a newspaper, both beating the drum. So that was as joyous as I had seen them when he was bid farewell by the Employees Bar Association. On the judicial side, I was not fortunate enough to sit with him at Chandigarh. But I sat with him for a little while when I was here. He assigned me one judgment to write. And the defense of the defendant had been struck down. All courts were concurrently upholding that order. And having gone through the record, I felt that that order needed to be upheld, so I upheld it. Justice Thakur differed. His inner conscience, one could see, had prevailed. He could not accept somebody not being able to defend himself in court. He wanted to give the defendant an opportunity to defend, no matter what. And that's the manner in which his judicial dispatch continued whilst he was a judge here. It didn't matter whether the issues were big or small. For him, conscience mattered. An instance like this was when, while hearing this Upar cinema tragedy case, the question of sentencing came. He upheld the High Court order saying that sentence of 1 year was okay. The High Court had actually brought it down from 2 years to 1 year. But his companion judge felt that no, it should have been 2 years. Here again, for an ordinary judge, maybe me too, I would have thought, what's the big deal, 1 year or 2 years? But for him, it's a big deal. He went by his conscience. He thought 1 year was good, and that's how it was. I do not know, but while bidding farewell to Justice Gopal Gowda, he said, in his last judgment we differed. I'm sure it must have been exercise of conscience by him. Actually, I'm a little bewildered today standing before you. It's a very different situation which I faced on an earlier occasion. In November 2009, then also I'd bid farewell to him. I'd bid farewell to him from Chandigarh to come to Delhi. And it was a joyous farewell. It was an elevation of sorts which we knew would end up where he has actually ended up. We knew that he would be the Chief Justice of India, and it was very, very joyous for us. And bidding farewell then was much easier than it is today. But I remember then, when I bid farewell to him, I'd said to him, I don't know whether by now your father is known because of you, or you are known because of your father. But I said to him, when you adorn the office of Chief Justice of India, your father will be known because of you. We've seen him to be a very hard-working judge. And I was extremely surprised one day. I was sitting with him on the dais, which I rarely sit on. It was this Asia Pacific Mediation Summit. And in his speech he said, I have 5% job satisfaction. I wondered why. Here's a man who works so hard. Actually, I remember 25%. So I went on the internet last night to find out whether it's 25% or what. It said 5%. When he became Chief Justice, I felt I could feel the trappings of why he said 5% satisfaction. He held a full court meeting in which he suggested to us that he would assign a constitution bench to anybody who is willing to do it during the vacation. And he said that he'd never been on a constitution bench. But after adorning the office, he has presided over many constitution benches. He has written many judgments which have been narrated to you today. Some very tough ones. He has traveled the country spreading the good word of law and making people aware of what our difficulties are. He has traveled abroad representing the Indian judiciary. He's invited delegations from abroad and we've had discussions with them, discussing their laws and ours. I was surprised to see him. Sometimes he would make 3 speeches in a week. And I didn't know how. He possibly released the biggest number of books ever released by anybody. I think it should go into some book of records. And one by our own Justice Rohinton Nariman. He'd worked so hard. He held a very difficult Chief Justice's conference. He held a judges' retreat, one of its kind. Was a extremely enriching experience when we heard the views of very, very eminent people in different fields of law, just by ourselves, never to be recorded, never to be told, but only to be understood. He addressed various international conferences here. His convening of the International Arbitration Conference was an outstanding achievement. His participation in the ICADR and the push he has given the ICADR is going to be remembered for a long, long time. And if arbitration, international arbitration ever comes to achieve something in this country, I think the roots would be, the fundamental, the foundations thereof would have been set by him. Justice Thakur was a man of abundance patience. He never hurried counsel. He heard matters very calmly. Was not that because he was not firm, he was very firm. He gave people an opportunity to say what they wanted to, but it decided what he willed to. He was an outstanding judge with outstanding qualities. A little while earlier, I read in the press, somebody said, he and I were like chalk and cheese. Absolutely. Nobody can compare with him. And therefore, I'll have to ask you to help me to reach where he has reached. Justice Thakur, what do I wish you? What should we wish for you? We wish you a rollicking future. What else do we wish for you? The other day, he came into the coffee lounge and I said to him, "Oh, there was this newspaper report you're going to be vice president." Oh, he laughed it off. We wish him to be president. Why vice president? Of late, he has shown some interest in arbitration. If he does decide to enter arbitration, we wish him